What kind of stuff do you write, Jane?
That's a real good question. I would say I write for two newsletters, and so I like that kind of writing. One newsletter, I am given assignments to interview people, and I write up. Uh, After interviewing them, I write up what they are doing. That has turned out to be a really fun thing to do. I didn't do that when I was working, but I much enjoy doing it now. I enjoy getting to see these other people, meet them, and see what they're doing. I'm more than happy to give them a little bit of spotlight for what they're doing. So I do those, and but for my own personal writing, um, I I'm what I would say is a lazy writer. I work best under deadlines, and most of the time, if I don't have a deadline to do, I just don't get around to writing. The best thing about the stained glass writers is it's sort of like a deadline. I have other people who are writing around me, and although I'm not required to write every single time, if I don't write for a couple times, I feel like I'm not pulling my weight. So it pushes me to write a little bit. Um, a surprise to me is I write pretty nearly personal narratives, is would be what I would guess you would call it. A surprise to me is that I've begun to write a little bit of poetry, but that's because I've been hanging out with poets. And I am certainly no poet, but it's been surprising to me that I've even fooled with that genre at all. Um, I love hearing what other people are writing, and I love being able to encourage them to keep writing. So my writing response is a mixed bag. I do some writing, but I'm almost more interested in other people's writing. When Debbie Gilson, whose studio we used, that's why we call it Stained Glass Writers, we started with her studio. And she contacted me and said, how about starting a writing group? And I said, do you think people would come? And she said, yes, she wanted to use her studio. Well, I contacted, I knew there was one over in Brookville, so I contacted Jess right away and went over and sat down and talked with her about how she started her group, how they communicated, what their goals were, how the group ran, and all of that. So from the very get-go, although I'm not a member of that group, I have always been very interested in it and consider it our big brother. I'm not a Facebook person. My little bit of experience with Facebook has not been positive. I find that people frequently use it to voice their thoughts, but not listen to other people's. So I kind of stay away from it, but maybe that would be a good thing for me to try.
Are you been keeping busy?
Well, that's a very good question. It depends on which day and depends on the time of the day. I find that I get start busy and then I lose energy. And this whole business of being home and finding things to do, I have cleaned out every drawer in my house, and I'm tired of cleaning out drawers. And then I went outside and started working there. But I find it's kind of a yo-yo experience. Some days very energetic, very up. Other days, poop.
You said you like to have deadlines. One of your deadlines is your stained glass writers meeting. You haven't had any in-person meetings for 2 or 3 months now. Are you still managing to do some personal writing?
Again, good question. Initially, I wrote a piece about when the lockdown first occurred. I wrote a piece about that. 2 or 3 times I've tried to use writing to make a statement about something I feel about strongly about, or something I want to convey, some some opportunity to open a conversation about something. And this one was also like that. Nothing came of it. I shared it with a couple people, and my husband in particular, and who rarely reads my stuff, and several of them did not think that I was on target with that piece in terms of understanding what I was trying to convey. So I kind of let it drift away. Just recently, I have been thinking again. I will say that I don't feel. I had a teacher one time who when you're teach on a college level, you're required to publish, and she said, "I will publish when I have something to say." And she said, "So far, I don't have something that somebody else hasn't already said." And I'm kind of like that myself. When I feel pushed to say something that I want to say, I will. Right now, I've been thinking a lot about the civil unrest and um, the disappointment that I feel in that we haven't moved further in this country uh, to uh, to move past some of the racial disparity of all sorts, but racial, I would say, especially. So I will probably write something. I'm getting close to writing something. So to go back to your question, no, I don't write regularly. And because we're not meeting in person, and I know that there's a few people in the group who always bring something, I really have sort of let it slip a little bit, but not completely out of my mind.
How do you feel about the COVID? Is it worrying you about your health or other people getting it?
I do worry about it, actually. I don't worry about it all the time because I can stay safe from it, which is kind of a help, or nearly stay safe from it. But it's very real to me because I am at that age where I'm at a high risk. My husband and I both are, and my husband had been struggling since last fall with a severe lung issue going on where he coughed all the time. In fact, when the COVID-19 lockdown occurred, we were scheduled for him to have a biopsy and it got canceled. So for 2.5 months, we sat and waited for that. And that was an unnerving thing to do. And but because of that and because of our age, it's a very real threat to me. I understand completely that even if you're a healthy 70-year-old, you're a 70-year-old. And although I know I'm mortal and that I'm going to die sometime, it's very real to me that if I got COVID-19, there would be a very strong possibility that what my husband or I would pass away from it. That's just the statistical aspect of it. So with that in mind, I have it's the first time that I really faced down something that I felt like I could dance around a little bit. Usually at our age, health issues come along and they're not something you can pass off, you can ignore, you can, our heart or lungs or liver or, something, who knows. But this is something that we don't have to get if we can avoid it. And so, yes, I've been dancing for 3 months around it, and continue to. Not only that, my siblings and my cousins are all in that basket too, being of the same age. So I'm at the age where most of my acquaintances are in that same age bracket. And so, yes, and to go back to my writing, that's what my first piece of writing was about, is I said, you're doing this for me. I really feel that if I were 25 or so and in good health, I'd probably say, I'm not going to worry about it. If I get it, it'll just be like the flu and I'll be fine. I probably would do that. So the fact that the country closed down, people quit going to work and did all of those things, I really honestly feel they did it for me.
Did your husband ever get his biopsy?
Yes, actually he did. Just at the beginning of May, as soon as they were able to, the hospitals began to open up again, especially in this area where we had such a low incidence and they didn't need those hospital beds for patients of COVID. They began to open up for people who've been waiting for things, and Paul was one of them. He got a call the day he went in for his biopsy. I was not allowed in the hospital with him. I sat in the parking lot at the hospital for 6 hours while he was inside getting his biopsy. And thanks for asking. He did fine, and actually, we're everything that came back negative, which was huge, huge. We're still not sure what's going on, but we know what's not going on, and that's sometimes very helpful. It's a very strange. I mean, every time you turn around, there's something uh, awkward or different about what the way you normally would have done something and the way you're doing it now. We're inventive, though. I will say we're an inventive species. We keep finding ways to kind of sneak around and do things, and find our way to one another in one method or another. But it is strange, very strange.
Do you think your writers group in Punxsutawney there, the stained glass writers, has helped other writers in their group be productive or perfect their craft? Have you find it to be a worthwhile project?
I think it is. I don't even think of it as a project. I think of it as an activity that is an ongoing activity. And absolutely, I do think that we are very, very supportive of one another as writers. We have the whole gambit. We have people like Joanne and Byron who have published, who have written for years and years and years, and Ray, and right down to people who have never picked up a pen since they were in high school English and would never even begin to consider themselves writers. Um, the joy of the group is that uh, we all are there to support one another. And so there isn't a strong sense of competitiveness or criticism of people who aren't as good as other people, or I don't even know what you call it as good. They're not as experienced. They don't have that, years and years of writing to draw on. It would be like me taking pottery. My pots wouldn't be anywhere near as good as Fred's wife's, and there's no point in comparing them. But yes, I could get to be a better potter, and that's what we're trying to do with our writers. Is everybody, and they're there for their own goals. People have their own goals for what they want to do, um, and also, I think in writing groups, like every other group, you have to be prepared for the fact that people will drift in and out. Some people just want to give it a try. Like going back to the pottery thing, maybe I'd like to give pottery a try, but maybe after I did it, I think, that was nice, but not my thing. I'll do something. So some people will drift in and out. Other people will be writers forever. And I think that you don't have to be judgmental about any of that. You just let them be who they want to be.
Are you anxious about getting back to in-person meetings, or are you concerned about it being too soon with the COVID cases actually going up right now?
Uh, Both. I'm anxious to get back to face meetings because I'm afraid of people who can't meet virtually drifting away from us. And I don't want them to drift away from us unless they want to drift away. That ought to be their choice. But I don't want them to feel like they can't participate. So on that respect, I definitely would like to get back to face-to-face. Plus, I just personally prefer it. I feel like the response, the give and take, the genuineness of it is just better in real face-to-face situations. At the same time, I'm all about safety. As you know, my age is, I never forget that. And I'm also about safety for people younger who don't think they have to be as safe. I worry about them too. So uh, I'm anxious to get back, but I'm trying my best to figure out the safest way to do that. At this last meeting, I suggested that maybe by July, we could have a lawn meeting and everybody bring their own chair and we could sit apart and some people could wear masks if you wanted to, you could or not. But I felt like that would be a compromise and allow people to at least physically be present. At the same time, I think it would be wise to offer it virtually at the same time because there'll be some people. I'm a retired school teacher. And one thing I learned after 37 years of teaching is that it works best if you give everybody choice. And the more choices you get, the more likely you are that people are going to find the right one for them. So, yeah, I'd like to try something, but not till it's safe. You really can't speak for everybody. You really can't. Everybody has their own situation and their own priorities. And I think this is just a remarkable project. I don't know much about you or what you do, but the little bit that I'm learning about is intriguing.